Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokemon Emerald video. Today I will be using one of the box art legendaries from Generation 2. Specifically I will be using Ho-Oh or Ho-Oh or whatever this board is called. As far as designs go, it's one of my favorites from that generation, to be honest. The wings colors and the rainbow association, it's just fantastic. As far as rules go, I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. While Ho-Oh and Lugia are legendary Pokémons with lots of stats, they would have one major issue at the start of the game that really made me not want to use them. You see, they only start with the move Whirlwind, which just makes the enemy Pokémon switch out, or makes you flee from the fight if it's a wild Pokémon. Usually that's not so bad, as you can just waste all of the PPs and then use Struggle, and thanks to all of those stats, it is a decent move at this point in the game. The real problem is that they do not get a real move all the way until level 22 with Gust, and that takes quite a while to reach, but because you are forced to use Struggle every time, so you have to heal yourself very frequently, and because since they are legendary Pokémons, their growth rate is very slow. And that's why I had to spend around 1 hour grinding against wild Whismurs by just using Struggle and spamming healing potions every time I almost ran out of HP. That was not fun at all, and it took forever. At least by the end I was able to defeat Roxanne very easily, right? Well, turns out that's not the case. Because of Ho-Oh's typing, this fight was very hard. Their rock moves are 4 times super effective and so they deal a lot of damage. I eventually had to try to defeat her with a struggle, and even though it was not easy, it was still more doable than Gust. Ultimately, this was a matter of luck, as I could not really control the flow of combat, and even if I got to level 33, Recover could not be using while I was struggling, as I needed to remove all of the PPs from all of the moves. At least this took only a handful of attempts before I got good luck and managed to defeat her just before running out of HP myself. From here on things will be quite a bit smoother. Now that I have an actual move, I can face every trainer without having to spend 10 minutes wasting all of my other PPs. And thanks to all of the extra levels, the fight against them are not going to be too challenging. I'm not sure what happened, but with 130 base attack, I was hoping that Ho-Oh would do more damage even with a weak move like Gust, but at least it's good enough to take care of Brawly, because all of his Pokémons are fighting type, which is weak against flying, and therefore Gust is a one-shot on all of them. Let's be happy that the second gym was way easier than the first one. Once we have obtained his badge too, we can move on to Slateport, where as usual we have to defeat the 2 Team Aqua Grunts who wants to steal some parts from this scientist guy. Their Pokémons are very frail, and so with the Gust I can defeat them all quite easily. I also got Steel Wing from Steven in the cave, but I don't think I will be using it all that much because of the not so great accuracy. The only thing it is good for is a few rock types that I will meet before getting another better move. Now that we have rescued that guy, it's time for the rematch against May. Fortunately, this one is actually quite easy because Gust is not that bad of a move considering that it is super effective on Lombre, and she does not have Torkoal anymore to tank it for quite a few turns. Next up is Watson in Moville, and since he is electric and super effective on me, I decided to spend a bit of time grinding to be able to afford the flamethrower. At 2 hours and 15 minutes, I finally have a good move on my side. I then proceeded to completely sweep his team, since none of them resisted, and because of stab, it deals a massive amount of damage. After defeating this gym leader too, we can use Rock Smash out of combat, and that lets us explore more of the region until we stumble both of the evil teams arguing in Meterfall Caves. This gives us some info about Maxi, who is on top of the volcano about to blow it up to awaken Groudon. Of course, we cannot let that happen, and so we end up challenging him. His team is not too difficult for now, since I can ignore the Intimidate with the Flamethrower, and even though his Camerupt is resistant, it still takes a good bit of damage thanks to Secret Power, because my attack is quite good for this point in the game. Once we have defeated him too, we can go down the mountain and enter the next town, where we have to beat the next gym leader. She is Flannery and uses fire types, so she is not too problematic, because I can just tank their fire moves and deal decent damage with normal ones. Since I did not end up using the Cherry Berry in the Watson fight, I still had it equipped for this one, and overall it is quite nice, as Torkoal will use Body Slam that has a good chance of paralysis, so that's an extra safety measure. With half of the badges in our possession, it's time to backtrack and we have to face our dead. I was not expecting the fight against him to be too difficult. I still have a flamethrower which is neutral on all of his Pokémons and still deals good damage. So ultimately it is enough to defeat all of them in one shot, except for Slacking, because that Pokémon is a beast and has a comparable amount of stats to what I am currently using. Fortunately, 2 flamethrowers in a row are enough and I can defeat him before having to take a nap. Norman is a huge turnaround point in the story, as after defeating him we can use Surf, and with that we can explore about 90% of the region, and eventually we end up in the Weather Institute, where we meet the Team Aqua Admiral Shelley. She is not too big of a deal and I can get rid of her Pokémons with a flamethrower each. After defeating her too, we can proceed to the next town over, but we are immediately stopped by our rival May. Her team is a decent bit more impressive now, since not many of my moves are that effective against them, but overall, because of the fact that they are mostly not fully evolved and my large gap in level, the fight against her was a breeze, and in no time we can move on to the gym leader. Winona is not going to be a problem today, because with both Flamethrower and Shockwave, even though I could have improved that into Thunderbolt, most of her team is a breeze. The only thing that is not weak against that combo of moves is her ace Altaria, and fortunately, since we are flying type, we are immune to her most dangerous move, Earthquake. After a couple of hits, Altaria goes down too, and with that we have earned the flying badge. I could have thought the move fly to Ho-Ho since it is physical, but the not so great accuracy and the fact that I could not remove it anytime I wanted kinda made me hold off on that. Resuming our journey, we can have another optional fight against May, and this time it's the last one. Unfortunately for her, her team did not improve enough to pose a serious challenge to Ho-Ho, and all of them end up getting defeated in one or at most two hits. From here we can resume our journey and end up visiting the Pokemon Cemetery Tower thingy, where we receive the magma emblem from the lady on top. With this key item, we can infiltrate the Team Magma Cave, where we meet with Maxi, as he is waking up the legendary Pokemon Groudon. But since he used the wrong orb, the legendary flees, and Maxi takes out his frustration on me, defeating me with a rock slide from Camerupt. That's kind of embarrassing, but that's what a 4 times weakness to a type can do to you. The second attempt goes slightly better, but I still end up struggling a lot against Camerupt, as I do not have any great move to hit him with. My physical ones are weakened by Intimidate, and the special ones are either resisted or nullified. To make things worse, Crobat survives a hit and confuses me. This is very bad because Ho-Ho decided to hit himself quite a few times. Ultimately, I was just barely able to defeat him, and now it's time for the weak grunt in the Team Aqua base. Or at least that's what I thought, because somehow this turns out to be not that easy of a fight either. And that's because of confusion. Ho-Ho ended up hitting himself, but only once this time, so I got a bit lucky here. Next, I did a little bit of grinding because I was worrying the next gym could be problematic, but fortunately Ho-Ho can learn Shadow Ball, which makes the fight against Tate and Liza a lot easier. Once again, Shadow Ball is considered physical in this game, and that's a very good advantage, as my physical attack is a bit higher than my special one. I was not expecting all of their Pokémons to be a one-shot, and since Xatu loves the sun so much, I finished him off with a flamethrower crit. Just a bit overkill, to be honest. Of course, this is not the only double fight of this island, and soon after that we have to help Steven fight off the leadership of Team Magma. Their Pokémons are quite a bit annoying, because of course I cannot spam physical moves so freely because of my Tiena, and even my flamethrowers are not that effective because Camerupt resists them, and if they manage to survive, they can set up with Amnesia, making them even more ineffective. Fortunately, I am not alone in this fight, and Metang ends up dealing quite a bit of damage for me thanks to his special and physical moves. Surprisingly, one of their Camerupts ended up using Earthquake. That is not a very common sight, but it did not even defeat Metang. After trading a few more hits back and forth, all of their Pokémons are defeated, and so we are finally done with this team. Up next is the fight against Archie in the seafloor cave, as we meet him when he is about to wake up Kyogre too. At this point, I finally upgraded my arsenal, and so Thunderbolt was the right choice to use here. All of his Pokémons are not very tanky or weak to it, so that's an easy sweep for me. Unfortunately, that is not enough to stop him, and the red orb activates on its own, waking the other legendary. With both of them awake, the weather in the region is turning to a hellscape, and so we have to go wake up Rayquaza so that it can put an end to the two legendaries fighting amongst each other. I was hoping to regain some time throughout the game, but all of the fights still ended up being kinda slow, so the time is quite bad, especially for a legendary. Anyway, once we have fixed the legendary situation, we can move on to the next gym leader. Juan is protecting the 8th badge, and unfortunately for him, most of his team cannot do all that much to me. Yeah, sure, they have water moves, which are super effective on me, but I have a lot, and I mean a lot, of special defense, almost more than my HP, and can also mostly destroy them with Thunderbolt. The only annoying thing, of course, is Kingdra, as I cannot one-shot him, and so he tries to double team. Fortunately, that does not work this time around, so overall quite an easy gym. Now that we have all of the badges, we can enter the Victory Road, where we have to fight against Wally. He is not too scary, even though I do not really have an answer for Altaria. Ice Beam is not on the list of moves that this bird can learn, so we have to beat him down with returns. At least from there, the rest of the team is much simpler to deal with, as I have a super effective move on most of them. I kinda fumbled against Gardevoir, as one Shadow Ball would have been enough, but it's not like one future sight will be enough to defeat me. And so, after a couple more turns, we have defeated this guy too, and after completing the rest of the Victory Road, we can finally enter the league. Here, our first enemy is Sidney and his dark types. Of course, he still has Intimidate with my Tiena to be a bit annoying, but at least I have a Flamethrower that is super effective or neutral against most of his Pokémons. The only thing I have to switch for is Kronaast, but one Thunderbolt is more than enough to take care of that seafood. Once we have taken care of the dark type trainer, we can move on to the next one, who is Pheobe, and like usual, the biggest gimmick she has going for her is the course from her lead Pokémon. I was unsure whether to use Flamethrower or Shadow Ball, but in the end Shadow Ball did the trick, and from there the rest of the fight was a lot simpler. The rest of her team either fell to Shadow Ball or Flamethrower. The only thing that survived is Dusclops, and I was a bit impressed about the amount of damage that he was able to dish out with a simple Rock Slide, considering that Dusclops' attack is very bad. Anyway, moving on, we have Glacia. She might be a bit problematic since half of her team is water and so can use surf or stuff like that, but that also makes her weak to Thunderbolt. Walrein ends up surviving a hit, and yeah, the damage from surf is quite consistent. Fortunately, she cannot take another one, so that's the big seal done. And from there, it's more flamethrowers and thunderbolts to wipe away the rest of their team. That could have gone better, but at least we did not have to reset even a single time up until now. Because unfortunately things are going to change with Drake. His Salamence is quite resistant to my moves and has a Rock Slide, so that's a defeat for me. Initially I did not want to go for the full special moveset, but at this point I also did not want to spend any more time in this run, so I switched to Calm Mind and took the opportunity to set up a few times against Shelgon. That turned out to not be a great idea, as I lost a lot of HP and most of my speed. At this point I thought it was over, but somehow Salamence ends up missing one rock slide and then gets paralyzed and fully paralyzed. So yeah, that's a like 1 in a couple hundred chance, and then Kindra and the rest of the team somehow do not end up finishing me off, leaving me just enough time to defeat them with either Thunderbolt or even Flamethrower. So I'm not sure what happened here, but I'm glad I did not have to reset once more. And finally we are at the champion fight. I'm not sure why, but I noticed that Oho can learn Giga Train, and that's a great move for this fight in particular. Against Wallace, I tried to use the usual strategy of setting up against Wailord. That did not go too well for me. For some reason, I gave up on lowering his HP when he still was quite healthy, but he also switched off of Water Spout, probably because he is calculating that thanks to my special defense boost, it will not do that much damage. After setting up a few times, I went on the offensive, and even though I was nowhere near to plus 6, my good base special attack, combined with the boost, should be enough to get me through this fight. Also, by using Giga Drain a couple of times, I managed to get back to full HP, and I could finish off the rest of the fight with a few more Thunderbolts. All things considered, Oho did not feel very good to use, and was quite a bit of a letdown for a legendary. Even ignoring the mess at the start, I still ended up losing a couple of times throughout the rest of the game, and that's not really something you are expecting from a legendary. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, share, ring the bell. If you have any comments or feedback, leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you next week. Bye!